Hello and welcome to this first studio video here on Newysports. In a while, it's been a long while since we've been in here under these bright lights. This is a half-yearly review. We did one of these last year. We're going to do another one this year, and we're going to go through every single team and every single grade. It's all timed, so I have to unfortunately yap on for the first minute before we get started. 11 weeks into the 22-week regular season. And to be honest, it has been flat out. This week has been the first week all year where there hasn't been midweek games to attend, whether it be New FM or the FA Cup. It has been absolutely flat out, but there's been a lot of football, a lot of results, a lot to go through, and we're going to try and get through all of it today. It's just been absolute craziness. So here we go. The first thing we're going to talk about in approximately 3 seconds when the time limit goes is the Under-15s competition. Is this a pass mark for me or isn't it? I still think the competition in its infancy is it's not all there. It really isn't. You've got some good sides, you've also got some sides that just aren't competing at all. I had a quick look at the NPL youth competition, the 15s in particular, and I saw even the bottom team has a win or two and they don't have issues like some of these sides have. And this isn't anything on the actual players. I think this is more, it's not really on the clubs either, it's just on the whole idea of just bringing in this 15s comp and expecting teams like Cessnock and Thornton and Singleton to find players. Singleton have done well, admittingly. So in the 15, Cessnock City sit bottom of the table, 10 losses, 3 goals in 10 games. It might be 4 goals now, I'm not sure if that's been updated, but that's not good. That's not good at all. And that's nothing on the players, it's just something that the club's got to work on. Cooks Hill, top of the table. Toronto in second has really surprised me. Admittingly, I've been told a lot of them have come over from Lakes, NPL, or I guess inter-district A grade. New Lambton, a strong club, you know. Cooks Hill, New Lambton, Kahibah, these are all big clubs, junior bases. Kahibah, I know for Kahibah, in the A grade competition of inter-district, they're top of the table in the 13s. I think they're doing okay in the 14s. Been around Kahibah, I play there, so you sort of hear these things from the coaches. That's sort of where the clubs need to be looking at. That's where they need to be aiming for. Westie have done well as well in the 15s, which doesn't surprise me. They have a pretty handy side. But South Cardiff, for instance, 10-0 2 weeks ago, 7-0 last weekend. Only 10 players on the weekend, and that's just not going to cut it as a side trying to compete. It's going to be very difficult with 10 players on the day. And again, this isn't on the actual players. I don't think you can blame the players. I think that's not what this is all about. This is about the system. Bringing in this grade, I still think it's a year or two away from really working. The 17s, sort of similar, and there's still some sides in the 17s. The big thing for me is these sides, these teams, these clubs have to have high-grade inter-district teams. You can't just go from 16 F grade to the under-17s competition and expect to find success. So let's talk about the last minute of the 15s segment here. Let's talk about the actual top teams here. Cooks Hill, all the ladders are available somewhere. I'll probably post them later today. Cooks Hill are top of the table, 8 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss. They're absolutely flying in the 15s. Toronto as well, New Lambton. Those are the 3 teams I think are the teams to beat in the 15s. Singleton, Kahibah and Westie behind them, and it sort of drops off from there. Those are the 6 teams competing for finals. Singleton, Kahibah, Westie for me are competing for the 4th spot. Cooks Hill play Toronto this week. There's some decent players in these sides, and some real goal scorers as well. Just quickly mentioning Jordan Hale from Toronto is on 12 goals, Marty Wilson from Cooks Hill on 10, Luca Phelan from New Lambton on 9. So just goal scorers all round, and it's good to see, and they'll be ones to watch for the future. We'll move on to the under-17s competition now, the Singleton Strikers, which they sit last with 1 win and 9 losses. That win coming over Thornton, who are equally in struggle town, if you will. For me, the Singleton 17s, I've said it before and I'll say it again, this is a side that's come from inter-district F grade, E grade, whatever it was last year. I spoke to Dave Willoughby, the head coach up there, about it. These players just sort of struggled to adapt to New FM, but and defensively, like the game against Cooks Hill last week, it was our featured match. You can go back and watch the goals and just see just what happened, just what went wrong for Singleton, if I can even say it. Just defensively not good enough, and that's really been the story of their season. They're in last place and they're battling with Thornton for the wooden spoon. Talking about Thornton, in fact, in my mind, these guys are probably the worst team. Defensively, they're a lot better than Singleton, but still 1 or 2 errors will cost them. Where they lack is in attack, the Thornton 17s. They've only got 5 goals in 10 games. Technically, they've got 7 because of that forfeit, but for goals scored, they've only found the back of the net 5 times in 10 games. Their only win is that forfeit against Kahibah. Really, this week against Cessnock, I think is a good chance for them to win. But Thornton 17s, just for me, and I've said it before and I will say it again, they will lose every game 1 or 2-0. That's just the way it is. That's the way it's been going, and I can't see them really doing much in the second half of the season. Maybe they've just got to score goals. That's the key factor in all of this. Hopefully they'll score some soon. Talking about Cessnock, they do play Thornton on the weekend in the 17s, and this side at the moment are the worst team in New FM football over the last month. I don't have a calculator on hand to tell you how many goals they've conceded. 7-0 defeats, 3 of them in the last 4 weeks, and a 4-0 defeat, which tells you they've conceded 25 goals in 4 games without scoring. I don't really need to say much more. They did sit at the top of the table, or second place thereabouts, after about 3 games early this year, but it's all gone downhill from there for Cessnock 17s, and I can't really see it improving. Attack, they just don't really. That's the thing. If you concede early goals, like they did at Kahibah, a very poor goal to concede early, it's going to be very tough to compete with that. They've just got to stem the bleeding, really. We'll move on to South Cardiff, who have been fairly disappointing in the 17s, but injury have left them sort of with a lot of headaches, and I haven't seen them in a few weeks. I don't know how those injuries are going, but nonetheless they sit in 8th position. Again, goal scoring's not really their forte, and that's 10 goals in 10 games isn't going to really put you anywhere. You've got to score more goals than that in this competition. For Southy, it's all about just climbing the table and getting a respectable position, I guess, over the second half of the season. Whether they can do that or not, that's the question. I couldn't name one of their attackers because Jaden Pryor scored on the weekend. I know that much, but they just don't have goal scorers. They don't have players scoring 10 goals so far. That's what they need, is more goal scorers. For Wallsend, who have equally been as disappointing in the 17s, it's more been a bit of luck. Luck has let them down on some days, performance has let them down on other days, but it's sort of building there, and I think, I'm not sure, I'm just going to say that a few of them will be eligible for 17s next year, and I think you'll see a much improved side. I'm not quite sure on that. I don't know if they're still going to be eligible or not, but I just think this is a work in progress, this side, and they sort of round out the bottom 5 teams, the rest of the teams competing for finals, in my opinion. For Wallsend, it's those sort of losses. The one against Cooks Hill, or that might have been a draw, but whatever it was a late result that they should have had in the bag and they didn't. Sort of the story of the season for Wallsend 17s. For Kahibah, who in my mind sit higher on the table, they did get that win up at Thornton. It doesn't count. You can complain about that until the cows come home, but nonetheless, they haven't been consistent enough and they haven't been scoring enough goals. Yes, they scored 7 goals last week and that helps anyone, doesn't it? But you put 7 goals past Cessnock, it doesn't matter if you don't go to Wallsend and put more than the required goals past them, or South Carter, for instance, who I think they beat 1-0 or whatever. This side for Kahibah have been missing a lot of goals. That's where they need to be. That's going to be the story. The second half of their season is be clinical in front of goals, and really just take it to the next level. They've got the players to do so. They just need to find the consistency and still well in the final race. And that's about it for them. Belswans, it's a similar story, but they have had injuries to deal with. I speak to Will McMaster most times. I go out there, who is a coach there, and injuries have just plagued their season. Jacob Windsor, Charlie Herrival, Mitchell Boyce was suspended, admittingly, but there's been injuries to key players. Some of those players are starting to come back. The form has come back for Belswans 17s, and suddenly, a win at Singleton this week, which they should get, could really push them equal with New Lambton, depending on results elsewhere. They're well in the race, and they've got a very good side and some good footballers, some really good style and wits about them. Will McMaster's doing a really good job coaching them. I think it's his first year coaching too, so they're definitely a side to look out for if they do sneak into finals contention, which they are. The top 4 now for New Lambton, absolutely solid. Until the last couple games, they had a couple of players out for Cooks Hill, had to bench some players to play 19s, but they're well in the race for the premiership, in my opinion. They are a very, very solid side in the 17s, New Lambton, and it does surprise me. I didn't really know what to expect of them in the 17s. They've got Westie this weekend, which is a big, big game for them, potentially a semi-final preview if things work out the way they are. But they've got some quality players in this side, and they can score goals from all over the park, New Lambton as well. Defensively, pretty good too, pretty underrated defence, and some handy players too, the Eagles in the 17s. I do think they'll make the top 4. I think the top 4 as it stands, it's going to be very tough for Belswans or Kahibah to get in. 3rd place, Toronto, they are absolutely flying. Toronto 17s, just like the 15s, are really guiding the way for that club, and it's good to see a Stag side in the top 4. I haven't seen them play that much, but the games I have seen, they've been very, very solid. Solid defenders as well. R.B. Watson, Flynn Ballon, Brock Redmond in goals as well has been really, really good. Just a solid outfit for Toronto. Thomas Appleby scoring a ton of goals. I don't know how many goals it is. I should know, but I don't. I can tell you right now, it's 10 goals for the season for Appleby. So when you got players like that scoring goals for fun, it really does help. Toronto have got Cooks Hill this week at the Affield, which is going to be a big test for them. Talking about Cooks Hill, they have been, well, they started for me a little bit slowly, but lately they have just gone to the next level. They've only conceded 7 goals this year, which have a quick look and tell you right now that is the best defence in New FM football. The best defence in the entire league is Cooks Hill 17s. Going forward, they don't really have an established, I guess Bobby Carter's got a few, Rory Cow9s, but those two together combined for 13 goals. Nick Hart, Lewis Rothfield, David Ball McKinnon. You can name these players, and these players are going to be ones that are going to be playing finals, and they are going to be a side to watch in the finals. It's all flowing at Cooks Hill. The whole club is just taking that next step this year. The 17s are no different, and that defensive record, I didn't even know that until I just checked it then. That is absolutely solid. Last but not least, in the 17s is West Wallsend, which they are top of the league, 10 games, they are unbeaten, and really they want to take that next step. After losing last year's grand final, some of these players, this is going to be their year. They believe it's their year, and at the moment there's no question they are the team to beat, but there's a lot of quality coming behind them in the top 4. So Westy New Lambton this Saturday will be a good one. It'll be probably one of the games of the season so far. As for players, off the top of my head, Blake Chiapara has been a good addition this year. Sam Wyburn, Kai Drayton's finding some scoring form. Those three together have 20 goals between them. So that's really where the damage is being done. 20 goals to those three out of 26 for the team. If you can shut those players down, you have a good chance of shutting this team down. The 19s competition, I feel like I need water at the moment, but I'm just going to keep going. Last place is Wallsend FC, and I have been just really perplexed by some of the stuff this team has gone through this year. Yes, some days they have been absolutely atrocious. 8-1 against Cooks Hill, 5-0 on Derby Day. Other days they have just been bizarrely, is that a word? That's not a word. They have just been unlucky. Only 13 goals scored, which is for me a little bit of a problem. They don't really have a recognised striker across any grade at Wallsend, really. That's one thing the club don't have, is an out-and-out striker scoring goals for fun. The 19s, they're a very tough side on their day. They won't finish last. There's no way this team finishes last, and I'll leave it at that. Second last is Cessnock City, which is the team that I think will finish last. Granted, they have shown a fight in their last few weeks. Some days they're absolutely atrocious. 8-0 against Belswans is as embarrassing as a result as you'll find this year. Some days they lose their patience, like the one at Toronto the other week, and for me they're just there or thereabouts, down the bottom of the table. Only 2 wins. It's not really much to write home about. Those 2 wins are against Wallsend and Southy, who are both also struggling. So for those players at Cessnock, it's all about the future there at Cessnock. Some of those 19s players have been pulled up to 23s and even first grade, so the future is bright at Cessnock, but they just got to work on it, and work on it well. We'll move on to the next team, which is South Cardiff. Their 19s team last year were really good without making finals. They lost some players, and for me this side are better than what this table says. They've only got 10 goals. It's sort of similar to the 17s, but the 17s have the excuse of injuries. Southy 19s are a better side than what this ladder says. It's the same for Wallsend as well. Those 10 goals, Ethan Spears, the captain out there, has 5 of those 10 goals, and you know, then Jonathan Ridgian's on 2, and then some players on 1. They've just got to sort of find goals from across the park, and I say it every week. If you read the previews every week, it's the same story. They need goals from across the park, the front 3, the front 2, whatever they have, wingers, you know, attacking midfielders sort of getting on the score sheet. That's what you need. That's what takes a team to the next level. And Toronto have done a little bit of that this year at times, but for me this side, just disappointing really. They are better than where they sit on the table, but the question is, are they? They've got some players who are pretty good. Connor Morgan is a real standout. He has 8 goals in the 19s. But defensively and structurally and all that, you know, the questions do have to be asked, because they sit in 8th place, and in my mind they won't play finals football. Connor Morgan's probably a player who could be at a better club, and you know, he's been pulled up to first grade a bit, and the same can be said for Alex Matthews. Luke Gibbons also playing 23s and whatnot. But for Toronto 19s, they would have wanted a lot more than what they've got so far this year. And the same story for our next team, which is Singleton. They started really, really well with Sam Ford as a coach. He's left. That's not going to hurt. Well, it's going to hurt them a little bit, but that's nothing to do with the team, really. Their on-field performance has just dropped off completely. They've had players out. They've had to fill in for 23s and even first grade, some of them. So it's been tough. It hasn't been easy for Singleton 19s. They looked a team to beat in the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season, and it's just all gone downhill since then. It's a familiar story for a few sides. Singleton 23s is one that comes to mind as well. For me, they are still in finals contention. They do have some decent players, but I don't know if they can do it. It's a very, very tough competition, the 19s. Tougher than 23s. Not as tough as the 17s this year. The top 4 in the 17s are really clamping down on that competition. The next side, Kahibah FC, in the 19s is up and down, being like a roller coaster ride. This side, absolute shambles of a performance at Wallsend the other week. They've backed it up since then with 2 wins, but even against Cessnock last week, this team can play good football, they can win games, but it's not confident. It's not, you know, it's the sort of thing that makes you think if they're going to get to finals, they'll just get booted out in week 1. Pretty convincing, well, week 2 technically, because it's the 2-leg system. They have got to go to that next level. They're capable of doing so, but I don't know if the players they have can compete with Cooks Hill, New Lambton and West Wallsend in the finals. A good defence, Kahibah. Just got to score some more goals, and that's been what these next few sides have done pretty well. Belmont Swansea 19s, what a side. I've been praising these guys for what seems like forever now. They're the defending champions. They haven't lost a game since May 22nd last year. That's a whole year without losing a game. A lot of draws this year, and if some of those draws were wins, these guys would be on top of the table. They are capable of it. They have, in my mind, the best front three in the competition in Nicholson, Ellis and Dundas. Defensively, they are underrated. They have conceded 9 goals, at least in the competition. Just solid side, a very, very solid side across the park. And you talk about the front three, I do all the time, but also players behind the front three. David Swain comes to mind, Jacob Muir in the back line. These players just solid, and this side, if they make finals, will again be a side to watch in the title race. 4th place at the moment is Thornton, who have admittingly dropped off the last couple games. The Thornton 19s, they were absolutely flying high. They beat New Lambton, they beat Cooks Hill. It's there this year for them to push on and potentially win the whole competition. But the last few weeks have just shown the cracks. The cracks have come through defensively. It's been a bit all over the place for them. Player retention, they've lost some players, they've gained some players, lost, you know, it's a little bit tough to sort of cope with that. But Thornton 19s, I think over the next couple of years will be a side to watch as these guys progress. Josh Davies, one always that gets praised here. Brock Thompson this year has been solid and is one to watch for the future at Thornton. If they can keep them there, then they'll have some success. Do I think they'll play finals? I'm not sure. 3rd place is West Wallsend, the losing grand finalists of last year. They've only lost 1 game this year to New Lambton on the opening day. So since opening day, they have not lost a game. Absolutely solid. Steve Thompson as coach. Some of these players are just, these players should be winning the title. These players like James Barnes, Josh Knight, these are strikers who can win you trophies, and that's what West Wallsend need to do this year. That's their next step. After losing those 2 grand finals in 17s and 19s last year, that's the next step for Westies to bring home some silverware. Even if it's a minor premiership, it's still some silverware. So they're definitely in that race. They've got New Lambton this week, and there's going to be all sorts of revenge on the mind for what was one of the shocks of the season on that infamous Monday night out at Johnston Park. Talking about New Lambton, who won 5-0 in that opening game, and were the team to beat for the first 5 or 6 weeks. Recently they've taken their foot off the pedal a little bit. They've been having to provide players for higher grades, and that always hinders what these sides are trying to do in the 19s. Lachlan Jones is, in my mind, the best player in the competition in the 19s. Best goal scorer, at least. Maybe not the player I'd pick as the best in the competition, but him, Lachlan Jones, Luke Homer together with 20 goals scored out of however many the side have, which I'll quickly tell you is 30. So 2/3 of their goals are coming from Homer and Jones. Morris Bocelli, I feel, should be playing 19s. I'll put that one out there. Top team in the 19s at the moment, Cookshill United. What do you say about these guys? This is where they should have been at, this is where they are at. This side on paper are one of the best in the competition, and I'm not surprised to see them sitting at the top of the table. It's all coming together recently for Michael Best's team. As I lose my hearing in one ear, that's not good. The goals are coming from around the park. Dylan McGarrigle's got 6, Jaden Wiggins 5, Brady Conlon with 4. That shouldn't be happening. You know, Fakes and Tyler Hoffman and Muller and Guest, and you can name this whole starting lineup. Michael Dalton, one of the best players in the competition in that grade. These guys are, in my mind, the grand final favourites as it stands, and they'll be sitting back and watching this game. Well, they won't be because they'll be playing, but they'll be eyeing off this result between New Lambton and Westie and seeing if maybe they can build their lead at the top. We'll move on to the under-23s competition. We're halfway there. Toronto are last, and in my mind have been, in the first half of the season, the worst team in the competition. These guys just are bad. There's no other way to put it. 5-1 down at half-time last week. Yes, they got back to 5-3, but you can't be 5-1 down. Steve Blunt, great guy, great coach, great person to talk to. He's put in some effort with this team, but it's just not there. And that's the facts. That's the cold, hard facts. 2 points from 10 games, 28 points dropped. I mean, they weren't going to win every one of them, but 2 points, not even one win, just, you know, there's not much else you can say. It's been defensively absolute craziness at times, and that's all we'll leave it at. Cessnock, who would be last, they would be last without any points at all if it wasn't for Toronto. Cessnock's only win of the season in the 23s was a 3-0 victory at Lyle Peacock Field. That tells you how bad Toronto are going. Cessnock only have 8 goals scored in 10 games. Admittingly, I will give them the fact that last week against Kahibah was a very decent showing for them. Kahibah weren't great, but Cessnock put in a good effort. Riley Taylor's goal, he's doing well. I think I've seen him score 2 or 3 free kicks so far this year, so definitely one to watch from a dead ball situation. But again, they're 7 points behind New Lambton. It's Cessnock and Stags to compete for the wooden spoon in 23s and indeed in another grade that we'll be soon talking about. I have 8 more seconds to talk about this team, and I'll just say they need depth. Alright, New Lambton, just brilliant. The first game I saw of theirs, 5-1 I think it was over Kahibah, and I thought this team is going places. They haven't really gone anywhere since then. Just not really decent enough against the big teams, and I've talked to some of the players there, and they just know that they're better than what they are, and consistency is needed. That's what the competition's all about. And the 23s is a sort of competition. It's that comp. 2 wins will take you from 9th to 8th to 4th potentially. You know, it's that sort of competition. Alex Ilo is a player to watch. Stephen Shute, for me, hasn't been as good as I thought he'd be, but then he got 4 goals last weekend, so all of a sudden, bang, there he is. Madalena, Harry Benbow, excellent player. So some of these players to watch New Lambton, You know, you got Peter Junkovic helping out the 23s. Hopefully a better second half of the season. The next side we'll go through, I don't have the ladder up, is Kahibah. That is my club. I can tell you all about that team without having to really check anything. Not good enough. Not good enough at all. They've got it together in recent weeks, but they couldn't afford that bad start. And even if they make finals, I'm not sure how they're going to go. It's a big question. That they knocked off Thornton in pretty impressive fashion. The game at Cooks Hill against the game at the Affield against Cooks Hill was a very solid performance. But for me, they need goal scorers. They need consistent goal scorers. Jasper Sandbrook is their top goal scorer. He has 7 goals. He is a fullback, and 6 of those goals are a penalty, and 1 is a free kick or a corner that's gone in. And they just need goals. Their next best goal scorer is Jackson Gosling on 2. That tells the story. They need a good striker. Next is West Wallsend. I don't know, Westie in the 23s, it's, you know, some days it's brilliant, some days it's poor, and that's really been the story this season for them. With consistency, they could have been flying high. A few of these players, they like to sort of drift in and out of first grade, off the bench of first grade. You know, Bronson Marshall is one that's played 23s and first grade. Sam Jones is pretty solid, but they just don't have enough goals to be, you know, they don't have a striker scoring a lot of goals like your James Barnes or your Josh Knight, which, you know, I know they have done, but if it was me, I'd be thinking putting Knight in 23s off the bench. They've done that before and it has worked, so the second half of the season, you know, it's not over for them. Their season's well and truly alive. Singleton, the same can be said for them. They sit mid-table, between 4th and 9th in the 23s, 6-point gap. So 2 wins takes you to the promised land, really. For Singleton, it's been difficult because they've had players in and players out. The only real consistent thing about this team is Ryan Geho in goals. Apart from that, it's just been a complete mess of trying to get a consistent lineup. And if you look at the top of the table and you see Cooks Hill United in the under-23s, they have a consistent lineup nearly week in, week out. That's the difference. That's going to be the difference all year. It was the same story with Lakes last year, who won the competition. Consistent lineups in 23s will win games, but it's that sort of competition in and out every week. Who knows? Same story for Belswans. They've had days where they go to warm up and there's 6 of them, and then they have to borrow 17s and 19s. And that's really not going to help establish any sort of consistency. This side have got a decent lineup, but again, you know, their top goal scorer is Emmanuel Okamu. He's on 2. Cooks Hill's top goal scorer, Asher Beasley's on 14. Zach Tapp from South Cardiff's on 10. You know, Belswans have just got to take that next step. Again, like, they don't really have any consistency apart from Benny Parmenter in goals most weeks, who, I tell you what, is one hell of an entertaining goalkeeper to watch. Doesn't always keep a clean sheet, but my oh my, is it entertaining to watch Ben Parmenter play. And look, they're still on the verge of the top 4, so it's not alarm bells, but a consistent lineup could go a long way. 4th place, South Cardiff, made the grand final last year. I haven't seen too many of their games. I don't really know much about their lineup most weeks, so I don't really know if they've had a consistent lineup. I think they have. Zach Tapp has a lot of goals. He has 10 out of 17 goals, so a little bit over-reliant on him, I think. But again, he's a scorer, so that's what you expect. They started really well, but then they dropped off, and I think they lost, or, you know, they went 3 or 4 weeks without winning. They dropped off, and now they're at the head of a group of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams that are competing for the 4th spot. In my opinion, the under-23 is the top 3. It's done. Then you've got 6 teams competing for 1 spot, which, you know what, makes it a very, very entertaining competition. Same thing last year. The exact same thing happened last year in the 23s. all these teams competing for 1 or 2 spots. Anyone's game from here. Third place is Wallsend, who have really come along in leaps and bounds. I can't really talk. The under 23s at Wallsend. I wasn't sure how they'd go, but some of these players in attack have been absolutely superb. You know, John Oliveras. I can't think of the other one, but it's up there. But I just can't think. Ty Cousins has done well. Callum Caldwell always works his backside off in games for them. Jason Maguire is another player that sort of plays 23s a little, plays first grade, just solid. And it's good to see like some of these players like Jackson Manning week in, week out playing 23s, still only young. Darcy Hall, who's now been promoted to first grade, Dylan Merrick in goals. The future's bright for Wallsend 23s and they're a side to watch. They did knock off Thornton, who we're going to talk about right now, who have lost 2 games in a row. They were absolutely flying, Thornton, in the 23s, but then the last 2 games just dropped off, and now they're 6 points behind Cooks Hill. Even with Wallsend and Thornton have got Cessnock this week, they need to win that game. There's absolutely no doubt about it. Talon Martin has been one that's sort of impressed me in the 23s. He is their top goal scorer. Josh Coleman as well. Bartlett's been in and out of 23. Sam Hurney, there's one to mention as well. And I have done in the past. He's definitely a player to watch up there. Young fullback. I think he's left fullback if memory serves correctly. So they're solid. They're definitely solid, but they need to get that consistency going. There's a jet flying over, but we're not going to stop this video because I just want to keep talking and get this over and done with. The top team in the under 23s competition, no surprise here, it's Cooks Hill United again. They're on top of the table in most grades. 10 games played, 9 wins, 1 loss, which was against Wallsend. 46-12 is their goal difference, which I spoke to Ben Nichols on the weekend. He is a coach there, and he just said for his team to have 46 goals in 10 games, that's 4.6 goals every single game. How do you beat these guys? In my opinion, the minor premiership is all theirs as long as they keep it together. And what I was talking about earlier, consistent lineup every week for Cooks Hill 23s. It's the same lineup, or near enough the same. You got some players like McGarrigle coming in from the 19s, Nick Hart from the 17s even getting a run last weekend. I noticed just a consistent lineup will do wonders, and that's what Ben Nichols has done with that team this year. It's been good for them. We move on to first grade. Cessnock City, last place. It doesn't really surprise me. Lino, Lino Gaddy, he came over here, he did this interview. The chair happens to still be in here. I haven't been in here that much, but the chair is still in here that Lino sat on and told me that it's all about the future. And last week Lino said, we need, he's joking, saying they need 20 players, but they need a consistent, probably 10 players or something to really fill out first grade and 23s. That's the problem at Cessnock, is depth, and it's a real problem. But look, what Lino Gaddy did this year was just clean slate, and it's always going to be very, very difficult to build from there. Infrastructure up there is getting built on. That's where the story is. It's all about the future. Are they going to get the wooden spoon this year? I think they are, but we shall see. Second last is Toronto, which we will be up there for Cessnock and Toronto in round 20, I think it is. That could be potentially the wooden spoon decider. They won't like that, Toronto, but it has been pretty poor at times. It's been good at other times. They beat Belswans. Toronto on their day are decent to watch. Competitive football is on their day, but their day is just not consistent enough. They don't really have any, big out-and-out goal scorer. Nick Roberts is their top scorer on free, the captain. But Blake Glennie, McKay, Redmond in goals. These are all like highly competitive people, and they're good to watch on their day, Toronto, but unfortunately for Adam Routledge, that day hasn't been consistent enough for them. Singleton, it's sort of a similar story, but a different story. Singleton have had to rely on youth this year in a way that has just really hindered their season. Guys like Jackson Skinner, Nathan Hall, they're great young players, but when you've got too many 18 and 19-year-olds, especially if the whole back line's 19 or whatever, Stewie planting goals, he has been wonderful for them this year. I couldn't imagine how many more goals they'd concede if they had a young goalkeeper in there. Fortunately, they got Ryan Geho as the number 2, who's also a pretty solid keeper on his day. But Stewie's done a good job with Singleton, and that's the story. It's all about the future for them. Just players in and out every week, and it's been tough for David Willoughby, and I can definitely agree with him that it isn't really a season to remember at Singleton, and I think next year they'll be better. 8th place, and this is a big surprise, Belmont Swansea, 5 points outside the top 4. It's not panic stations, no, but it's starting to get to a point at the halfway mark of the season. In fact, I'm going to start talking for 2 minutes about every side. That's what I'm supposed to be doing for first grade, so it gives me a little bit more time. It's starting to get to a point where you ask yourself, are Belswans going to miss finals? Because it just isn't consistent enough. Josh Rufo's come in there. It's been a real culture shock. It's been a real change from what they've used to over the last few years. A lot of players gone, a lot of new players in, and it's just not working. I spoke to Teague Marcus the other week. This was after their loss to Thornton, and he agreed that it's just sort of not all there yet. Last weekend at South Cardiff, Josh Rufo subbed himself on in the 70th minute, which I'd love to see that, but it's sort of, to me, it's sounding like they're getting desperate. They're trying to just change things up, and this is what we have to be real now. This is first grade. We're talking about a team that was predicted to finish in the top 2 that are sitting in 8th halfway during the season, so we have to be real about this. Without Teague Marcus, I don't know where they'd be. He has 11 goals out of 18 that they've scored. You take him out of that side. You got Josh Hall, and Nicole's been good. He's been a good addition, but really, it's just not all there for Belswans, and it's a pain because they're a brilliant club. They're a brilliant side to watch. I just realised I've got Cameron Lodge down as 2 different people on this goal scoring list. That's not good. So we'll move on to the next team and talk about them. It's New Lambton, the newcomers to the competition. Are they where I thought they'd be after their first win? No, I thought they'd be absolutely flying after what they did at West Wallsend on opening night. But since seeing them since then, this is probably where I thought they would have been. Still in the race for finals. On their day, they are the best side in the competition to watch, apart from maybe Cooks Hill. Absolutely brilliant on their day, but on other days, just not really good enough. Andrew Packer he's a pretty emotional coach. He doesn't really show it publicly, but with his side, he can be very happy. He can also be very angry. Wants a lot from that team, and to be fair, deserves a lot because it is a pretty solid lineup they've got there at New Lambton. Mid-table finish for them, they want to push for finals. There's no doubt about it. Alex Ilo is now their top scorer since coming into the first grade the first grade structure. He has been one to watch, and players like Casey and Maloney and McClaw, they're all young players. Nick Pepper the same. Nick Pepper on the opening night of the season, 2 of the best goals I have seen this year, and he hasn't scored since. Yes, he's been injured the last few weeks, but that just sort of says they started really well. The FFA Cup against Kahibah was a good one. The potential is there. If New Lambton get into the finals, look out. Cooks Hill can tell you that very much, that New Lambton rise to the occasion when they have to play the big teams. They've got Kahibah coming up soon as well, who they love to beat after beating them last time, and the game in round 2, still the best game all season in my opinion. 6th place is West Wallsend, which is a lot better than what I thought. During pre-season I just saw alarm bells ringing out loud at West Wallsend. They didn't really change too much of their lineup, they didn't bring in too many new faces, and you know, Gary Rowe and them, they spoke about pushing for finals, and you know, Gary Rowe, he says it himself, they're not going to win the premiership, but he wants to be in the finals. And really after that first loss, that 6-1 loss to New Lambton, and then there wasn't really much to talk about for the next couple of weeks after that. Since then though, they've come along in real quality, beating South Cardiff and producing a good clean sheet against Singleton, I think it was, and West Wallsend are sitting 3 points outside the top 4. And they're another one of those teams. If they, along with New Lambton, if Westie make finals, which I can't tell you the last time they did, if they make finals, they are going to be a hell of a tough team to beat, especially on their home patch at Johnson Park. They're not going to finish in the top 2, so I'm talking about first week of finals. If they have a home final, it's going to be very difficult to beat them. Westie and New Lambton are on this Saturday. We will be there, and that for me is going to be a real checkpoint, I guess, of where these two teams are at. You know, in round 1, New Lambton 6, West Wallsend 1. It was just absolute despair for West Wallsend, absolutely flogged. But you know, this week if they get a win, all of a sudden they're pushing for the top 4, and all of a sudden their season is well and truly on track to where they said it would be. Next team, the defending back-to-back champions, Wallsend FC. Are they higher on the table than I thought they'd be? Just like West Wallsend, I will say yes. It's no lie, I sort of wrote this team off, and you can never, ever, ever write Wallsend off. That's something you've got to learn in this competition. But for me, it's still not all there. You know, they're beating lower teams, but they did beat Kahibah admittedly. But when they came up against Crooks Hill, they were just brushed aside. Thornton did get beat by them too. So Wallsend they're on the rebound, but I still just don't know if they have the quality to win the comp again. But if they can get into the top 4, then who the hell knows? Because this is Wallsend we're talking about. And you know, we wrote them off against Vallo that first year. Last year, Belswans, we wrote them off against Lakes both times as well in the semi-finals. So anything can happen with Wallsend. For me, they need more goals. Matt Williams is their top scorer on 6, which, you know, he's doing well, but Trent Milton's behind him on 3. Goals are sort of coming from all over the place, but they just need a bit of consistency. More consistency for Wallsend than they can push it. They've only got 17 goals scored, which is less than most of the top teams in the comp, so a lot less than some of them. Defensively, Wallsend are one of the best teams in the league. I'll give them that. They've got a very, very solid defence, and they like that. They like the games that end 1-0, 2-1, and really grinding out results. It was the story when Rufo was there. When Rufo left last year, it was still what they did with Hodgson and all them, and it's still what they do now. Wallsend just battle for wins, and they do a good job of it. 5-5, sort of the middle point of the year, still everything to play for. The top 4, South Cardiff, didn't really know what to expect. This was one side I did not see too often in pre-season. I think I saw only one pre-season game, and it was up at Thornton, and it was on a cow paddock, a very, very small cow paddock that's probably smaller than my backyard. So that was a very tough gauge to get them on. But then they beat Wallsend in round 1. You know, Southy were flying high, and then they had that drop-off. Just like the 23s at South Cardiff, they had that drop-off, and now they sit in 4th place, just like the 23s. It's the exact same story. But Southy, on their day, can compete with anyone. Cooks Hill did beat them 3-0, but Southy beat Kahibah. Thornton smashed them 6-0. I still don't know how that happened. Southy beat Lambton 4-0. You know, these guys on their day are one of the best teams in the competition. Dennis Fajkovic, it's been a different year for South Cardiff. There's a lot more optimism. They sit higher on the table. There's goals coming from all over the place. Runge and Akmatai and Cowling's got some goals. He got the winner on the weekend. Fajkovic himself stepped up and scored an absolute quality goal when I was out there last time. We haven't been to Southy too much this year. We don't actually have too many games out there, but we will be there for a Kahibah game coming up soon. I think we see Southy in an away game coming up soon too. So they're definitely a side to watch, and another team that if they get in the finals, you know, they've got nothing to lose, everything to play for. 6 wins, 4 losses, no draws, which, you know, they've been involved in some tight wins, some tight losses. It's been a pretty solid season for South Cardiff. You'd probably say 7 out of 10 or something like that, and the potential is there for success. Thornton Redbacks in 3rd position. They were in 2nd, they were in 1st for 24 hours not that long ago. Have been, in my opinion, the dark horse, and this is what we say every single year. It's the same story. This is the Redbacks, they're the dark horse. You know, they're going to push for finals. They're going to do it this year, and year in, year out, they finish 5th or 6th, and that's where it ends. This year's different. At Thornton, there is something about that side. Yes, they've lost to Kahibah in back-to-back games, which has just brought their run to a standstill, but they have so many games in such a short time. They beat Belswans and Lambton, and they absolutely demolished South Cardiff that day. 33 goals scored, 13 against. Thornton have a better defensive record than Cooks Hill. 2nd best defence in the competition. And the players they have there, it's just all working. At the moment, I would say to you, if I had one player in the competition to pick who's the best player, behind Lee Ashton probably, is Nathan McAllister. He has been absolutely immense this year. The captain of Thornton, 13 goals scored, but it's what he's doing, not just scoring goals, it's the assists, it's the plays, it's the runs, it's the energy that he brings to that high pressing formation they've got with young Halverson and Subert. He's running his arse off this year, Jamie Subert, and yes, he's battling injury. If they can get Subert fully fit for finals, my oh my, this could be a big year for the Thornton Redbacks. A very, very solid side, underrated defence as well. Adderwell's been a good addition from Cessnock. It's all sort of working for Thornton. I don't know if that was 1 minute or 3 minutes, 2 minutes. I've got my timer here. We're going to talk about Kahibah and then Cooks Hill. For Kahibah, which, you know, it is my club, I'll put that out there. The best defensive record in the league, 8 goals conceded. That's no surprise with a side that's got Andre Gumprich at the helm. He is all about defence, he's all about structure. Just sitting there watching Kahibah last week against Cessnock, I thought, just go, just attack, attack, attack. That's what Cooks Hill do. They didn't do it against Cessnock, but you know, they did it against some teams. Kahibah are a side that just structure, and then they just pick you off, and you know, that I think Gumprich would rather win 2-0 than 5-1, for instance. It's all about the clean sheets, it's all about the structure, it's all about the positioning, the communication. Kahibah, very, very technical sort of side. The goals, you know, probably could have, you know, Hadlow's got 6, probably wanted a few more than that. Hodgson's had a pretty quiet season by his standard, but some of these players, like Ash Ilfield, if he's in the side, then he just boosts it so much more. Penfold, you know, young wingers like that. Trummel, who definitely isn't a young winger, but he's probably the complete opposite. Just experience, youth, the players coming through. They've got Bailey Chaplin coming back in the 23s now. He's come back from Spain. He's definitely one to watch if he pushes in first grade. Matt Parker has been solid since joining the club. Kahibah are a side that on their day will push to win trophies this season. Still, to this day, 10 rounds in, halfway through the season, the only team to beat Cooks Hill are Kahibah, with a very, very fortunate own goal, I must add. Right, so the last team we'll talk about, thankfully, because this has been a pretty long, arduous task today, is Cooks Hill United. You can give me 20 minutes and I can talk about Cooks Hill this season. I said go back and watch the video. I said it has to work. That's what Cooks Hill told me. I know, I was at that club for 3 years. I spoke a lot behind the scenes with some of their committee, one or two people in the committee, the coaches. I spoke to Graham Law. It had to work at Cooks Hill. There's absolutely no question about it. The side they brought in, they just really, really want this to be their year. It's their 20th anniversary as well for Cooks Hill this year. And you look at the last few years, and I was at the club, I can tell you all about it. Warren Spink and Blake Glennie and Mark Trenner. Mark Trenner, absolute legend of the club, won them 3 grand finals in Zone Premier League. But for me, I said it last year, Cooks Hill were a pub team. And I said that last year, and I meant that last year. They have gone to that next level this year. They have gone to that absolute next level. Graham Law has brought in, admittingly, a lot of players from Adamstown. They have brought in an entirely new team, which part of me doesn't agree with that. I don't really like that, but if that team stays there for the next few years and really establishes a core group, especially the young guys coming through. Cooks Hill are on top of the table in 4 out of 5 grades, and the other one they're second in the 17s. What do you say? This club is the new Lakes, and it does piss people off when you're successful and other teams are chasing you, but it's brilliant to watch at times, Cooks Hill. I still don't know how they didn't beat Singleton on the weekend, and they, right now, I'll tell you, they are the premiership favourites and championship favourites, and that's where we'll leave it for that. So that's pretty much every team we've gone through, thankfully, because this has just gone on and on and on. So we go for a bit of an outro here for the next few minutes, and I'm going to try and maybe get these videos back. It's hopefully not going to be an hour every week because I have not had a drink, my throat is killing me, but we got through everything. Halfway through the season, teams that are gone, there are teams that are gone, completely gone. They're not going to push for finals. They're only going to really push for a wooden spoon, or push away from a wooden spoon at best. But now it's starting to get that time when all these games start to mean a bit more, because there's finals that are on the horizon. They're only 11 weeks away now. All the washout games are fortunately over. We can sort of start getting some consistency about, we finish one week and then look ahead to the next week without having to worry about catch-up games from 8 weeks ago. That's really good. Is this competition improving this year? In regards, I say it is. I can't talk too much about the lower grades, but in first grade, New FM football this year has improved. The standard is still a long way behind NPL, but it's improving every year. The standard in some games is behind Zone Premier League, which pisses some Zone Premier League clubs off, but nonetheless, that's where we're at. As I said right at the start about the 15s, it's all about these clubs taking that next step. Kahibah, they've got the under 12 A grade, 13 A grade, 14 A grade. Cooks Hill would probably be the same, I don't know. New Lambton, all these inter-district teams. That's what these sides need to do, and it's very hard when you're a club like Cessnock and you don't have that base. Singleton, Thornton, South Cardiff, admittingly, have struggled in that same regard. It's all about the future. There are some clubs that are still a little bit peeved about being in UFM and not in NPL. I won't name those clubs, but there's probably only 1 or 2 I can think of off the top of my head. But nonetheless, we're here for the long haul. We're here for the next 3 years, and hopefully over the next 3 years we can see these 17s players going to 19s. We can see the 19s go to 23s. We can see some of these 17s go into first grade over the next few years. That's what it's all about. It's happening at some clubs, and it's good to see. And so far this year, it's been a hell of a year. The support for Newysports has been absolutely incredible this season, and that's something I have to point out. I can't not point that out. I don't know how many likes it is now. It's 4,600 likes. I started this and I was jumping for joy when I had 100 likes and 10 views on my video, and now here we are, 4,600 people following the page. Admittingly, I make mistakes. We don't make mistakes. I make mistakes. Sometimes with some very crap reporting, but who doesn't do that in journalism? We're not the Daily Telegraph. If we were, we'd be making more mistakes, wouldn't we? But this is just, it's what it's all about. It's building the competition. That's what I wanted to see. There's so much support from, the 15s has been a decent addition. This year the 17s has come along in leaps and bounds. Some of those teams, there's some really good teams in the 17s. The 19s, always a good comp. 23s is still sometimes a bit of a struggle, but first grade, some of these teams like Cooks Hill, as we talked about, Thornton, these sides are going to that next level, and it's good to see. And this second half of the season, it's just going to get better, and I guess here we go for the second half of the season. Thank you for joining us for our half-yearly review. I'm Ty Stedman, and I will see you in the next video.